Sienna Hart kept her face neutral as she set the folder on the conference table. The glass walls of the executive suite made everything feel exposed, like every breath had an audience. Across from her sat a man in a Navy maintenance uniform, sleeves rolled to the forearm. His hands were clean, but the knuckles looked permanently bruised from honest work. He didn't fidget, he didn't glance at the door. He just waited. Sienna opened the folder and read the top line twice, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something kinder. "Eli Mercer," she said, steadying her voice. "This is a formal notice of termination, effective today." He gave a small nod, not agreement, acceptance, like he'd already lived through the moment in his head and decided fighting wouldn't change the ending. Sienna turned the page. 21 late arrivals in the last 12 weeks, each instance documented, each instance verified by time clock records and supervisor sign-off. Eli's eyes stayed on hers, not defiant, not pleading, just level, as if he'd learned a long time ago that explanations were a kind of debt collectors didn't accept. Sienna hated that her stomach tightened anyway. "I want you to understand, this isn't personal, it's attendance. We've tightened standards across the operation." "I understand," Eli replied, voice even. Sienna slid the final page forward, the receipt form, the acknowledgement line. He picked up the pen, signed his name with careful, legible letters, and set it back exactly where it had been. Then he stood. Sienna stood too, because some part of her still believed in manners, even when the moment didn't deserve them. Eli hesitated for a fraction of a second, then extended his hand. The gesture caught her off guard, a man who'd just been fired offering her dignity. She took it. His grip was firm but not aggressive, steady, like he was anchoring himself to something he couldn't afford to lose. "Thank you for your time," he said, and then he walked out without looking back. Sienna remained standing long after the door shut. She told herself she felt relieved, that she'd done what leadership required, that the board would see she could be decisive. But what she actually felt was something else, an uneasy sense that she'd just closed a file without ever learning what was inside it. Outside her office, in the hallway, a low chuckle drifted through the door's seam. Sienna turned her head. Through the glass panel, she saw Marcus Vellum, Chief Operations Officer, leaning against the wall like he'd been there the entire time, arms folded, suit immaculate, smile small and satisfied, as if this had gone exactly the way it was supposed to. When he noticed she was looking, his smile widened just enough to feel like a warning. Sienna's fingers tightened around the edge of the folder. Because if Marcus was pleased, there's a chance she'd just played a part in a game she didn't even know was being played. That night, Sienna would sit at her mother's kitchen table and hear a casual sentence that would turn her stomach cold. "The new neighbor," her mother would say, pouring tea. "He's such a kind man. His name is Eli." And suddenly, Sienna would realize the man she fired wasn't just an employee file. He was living right next door to the only person Sienna still trusted.
The following evening, Sienna drove out past the newer developments and into the older part of town, where the trees leaned over the road like they remembered everyone who'd ever lived there. Her mother's house, small, brick, and stubbornly unchanged, sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. The porch light was already on, even though it wasn't dark yet. It was the kind of habit a person kept when they'd spent years waiting for someone to come home. Marilyn Hart opened the door before Sienna could knock. "You look thin," Marilyn said, as if that were a diagnosis and not an opinion. "I'm fine," Sienna answered, stepping inside. "Fine isn't a food group. Take your shoes off, you'll track in gravel." The house smelled like lemon cleaner and something warm, soup maybe, or bread. On the kitchen counter sat a covered plate, like Marilyn had been preparing for Sienna the way she used to when Sienna came home from school with scraped knees. Sienna set her keys down and tried to relax her shoulders. "How's the roof holding up?" Marilyn waved a hand. "It's holding up because the new neighbor climbed up there and fixed the loose flashing like it was nothing." Sienna paused. "You hired someone?" "Hired," Marilyn repeated, offended by the word. "I tried, he refused." Sienna poured herself a glass of water from the sink tap. "Mom, you can't just let strangers get on your roof." "He wasn't a stranger, not after he carried my grocery bags in during the storm last week." Sienna took a sip and leaned back against the counter, half listening, half still hearing the click of her office door closing behind a man who hadn't asked for mercy. Marilyn went on, assembling 2 bowls and moving with the efficiency of someone who didn't need a recipe for anything. "He also fixed the gate latch that's been sticking since your father was alive." Sienna looked up. Her mother didn't talk about her father like that often, casual, unguarded. It meant she was genuinely pleased. "That's nice," Sienna said carefully. "It's more than nice." Marilyn set the bowls down and sat. "He's the kind of person who notices what needs doing. He doesn't announce it, he just does it." Sienna forced a small smile. "What's his name?" Marilyn lifted her chin, amused. "Why? Planning to run a background check on my neighbors now, CEO?" Sienna didn't answer. She couldn't. There were days when her title felt like armor, and days when it felt like a costume that didn't fit. Marilyn carried the bowls to the table and sat. "His name is Eli Mercer." The glass in Sienna's hand didn't slip, but something inside her did. She kept her face still. She'd trained herself for that. Board meetings, investor calls, bad news delivered on clean letterhead. But her mother noticed everything that mattered. Marilyn's eyes narrowed. "What's that look?" "Nothing," Sienna said too quickly. Marilyn leaned forward slightly. "Sienna." Sienna's throat tightened. "He worked at Hartwell Distribution." Marilyn blinked. "Worked?" Sienna set the water down with controlled care. "Mom, you can't just let strangers get on your roof." Sienna set the water down with controlled care. "I terminated him yesterday." Silence didn't fall in the room like a dramatic moment. It settled the way dust does when someone stops moving. Marilyn's expression didn't turn angry. That would have been easier. It turned thoughtful, hurt, and then measured, like she was choosing each word as if it would matter later.
"Why?" she asked. Sienna stared at the steam curling up from the bowl. "Attendance." Marilyn didn't speak at first. Then, "He's raising a little girl." Sienna's eyes lifted. "A little girl?" "Yes." Marilyn's voice softened in a way that made it more serious. "I've seen them in the mornings. He walks her to his car, packs her backpack, checks her hair like he's trying not to get it wrong." Sienna swallowed. She hadn't known. She hadn't asked. The file had never mentioned it. The meeting hadn't offered it. Marilyn continued, quieter now. "He told me his wife passed a few years ago. He didn't say it like he wanted sympathy. He said it like it was a fact he'd learned to carry." Sienna's stomach turned, not with pity exactly, but with that specific kind of dread that comes when you realize you made a decision with a blindfold on. Marilyn reached across the table and touched Sienna's wrist. "I don't know what happened at your company, sweetheart, but I know what I've seen here, and that man is kind." Sienna didn't trust her voice, so she nodded. Marilyn squeezed once and let go. "Eat, then tell me what kind of day makes you fire the only person on this street who offered to help without being asked." Sienna picked up her spoon. She didn't taste anything. Later that night, Sienna would sit in her car at the curb and stare at the house beside her mother's, porch light on, curtains drawn, until one thought finally landed with weight. If Eli Mercer had a child depending on him, then the lateness file on her desk wasn't the whole story, and someone at Hartwell made sure she never asked for the rest.
6 weeks earlier, a box truck the color of old concrete rattled into the cul-de-sac and stopped in front of the smallest house on the street. It wasn't the kind of moving truck that meant a fresh start with matching furniture and labeled boxes. This one meant necessity, secondhand couches, taped-up cartons, and a timeline that didn't allow for sentiment. Eli Mercer climbed down from the driver's seat and shut the door with his shoulder. He stood for a moment in the sun, looking at the house like a man taking inventory of what little he could afford to hope for. From the passenger side, a child scrambled out, skinny legs, oversized hoodie, hair pulled into a messy ponytail that looked like it had been redone 3 times and still wouldn't cooperate. "Is this really our house?" she asked. Eli's mouth twitched at the corner like a smile that didn't want to fully show itself. "It's ours, Pippa." Pippa stepped onto the sidewalk and stared up at the trees lining the cul-de-sac. The branches were thick and green, throwing shade over the road, a good place to ride a bike, a good place to disappear into if you needed quiet. Pippa turned back to him. "Will it be okay?" Eli didn't answer right away. He walked to the back of the truck and lowered the ramp. The metal thudded against the pavement. "It'll be safe, and you'll have your own room," he said finally. Pippa nodded like that was a huge deal. Eli had picked the place for 3 reasons. First, it was the only one in the area that didn't require a perfect credit score and a security deposit the size of a small miracle. Second, it was close to a bus line and far enough from the warehouse district that the air didn't smell like diesel all day. And third, though he never would have admitted it out loud, the kitchen window faced east. In the mornings, the light would come in clean, warm, the kind of light that made pancakes look like a promise. He carried the first box down the ramp and nearly dropped it when the screen door of the house next door creaked open. A woman stepped out wearing gardening gloves and a wide-brimmed straw hat that had seen better summers. She wiped her hands on her jeans and approached the property line with the confidence of someone who'd lived long enough to stop being afraid of introductions. "Hi there," she called. "You must be the new people." Eli set the box down and straightened. "Yes, ma'am." She smiled. "Well, I'm Marilyn Hart. Welcome to Hawthorne Ridge." "Eli Mercer," he said. Then, after a glance back at his daughter, "And this is Pippa." Pippa lifted a hand in a small, cautious wave. Marilyn's smile softened. "Well, Pippa, I made too many blueberry muffins this morning." Pippa's eyes widened. She looked up at her dad like muffins were a kind of test. Marilyn continued, "If your father says it's okay, you can have some. And if he says no, you can blame him and I'll pretend not to notice." Eli's shoulders loosened, just a fraction. "That's generous." Marilyn waved it off like it was nothing. "It's neighborly." She turned her head toward Eli's truck ramp and the strain in his posture. "Do you have help unloading?" "I'll manage," Eli said automatically. Marilyn didn't argue. She simply nodded, like she'd heard the words but didn't accept them as final. "All right, I'm next door if you need an extra pair of hands, or a ladder, or a wrench." Pippa watched Marilyn walk back to her porch, then whispered, "She's nice." Eli picked up the box again. "She seems it." They worked quietly for most of the afternoon. Pippa carried small things, pillows, books, a shoebox of markers. Eli carried everything else. When the sun lowered, he sat on the front step for 1 minute, just one, because his back demanded it. Pippa sat beside him with her knees pulled to her chest, watching a squirrel dart along the fence. "Dad?"
Yeah? Are you gonna be mad if I miss Mom? Eli's eyes stayed on the yard, but his voice went careful. No. Pippa swallowed. I miss her a lot. Eli nodded once, slow. Me too. A screen door creaked again. Marilyn appeared with a plate covered in foil. Blueberry muffins, she said, holding them out. And don't argue with me about it. Eli hesitated, then accepted the plate with both hands like it was fragile. Thank you. Marilyn looked at Pippa. You settle in, sweetheart. If you ever need to borrow sugar, you come knock. Pippa smiled for real that time. After Marilyn disappeared back into her house, Eli set the muffins on the step between them. Pippa peeled back the foil and breathed in like she was trying to store the smell for later. Eli didn't eat one right away. He just watched his daughter take the first bite and look relieved, as if muffins could prove the world still contained good things. 2 weeks after they moved in, Eli would take the only job he could get fast, an entry-level role at Hartwell Distribution, and by the end of his first month, the company would be running smoother than it had in years, while the time clock quietly built the case that would destroy him.
2 weeks after the muffins, Eli filled out an application at Hartwell Distribution using a pen borrowed from the public library. He kept his answers short. Name, address, prior work. 3 plain lines that didn't invite questions. The role was listed as floor tech shipping support. It hummed through the aisles with the calm aggression of creatures that knew no one would step in their path twice. A supervisor named Renee Calder walked Eli down the main lane, asking the standard questions. Can you lift 50 pounds? Comfortable with scanners? Any limitations I should know about? I can do the work, Eli said. Renee watched him a moment longer than most supervisors watched anyone. Then she handed him a pallet jack and pointed at a messy row of returns stacked like an afterthought. Make that make sense, she said. Eli didn't ask where to start. He moved boxes, scanned labels, separated damages from reships, and shifted the entire row 2 feet to open a clean walking line. He didn't work fast, he worked right. 10 minutes later, the chaos looked like a system. Renee blinked. Where'd you learn that? Eli shrugged. Around. By lunch, people were asking him questions they didn't usually ask new hires. Which carrier was best for oversized freight? Why pick paths were so long? Why Bay C always jammed up near the dock door? Eli answered quietly, then went back to work. That evening, Renee told a friend in the break room, he's either hiding something or he's the smartest entry-level hire we've ever had. Eli clocked out, drove home, and tried not to look like a man building a life on borrowed time. Within a month, Eli's small fixes would boost output, yet every morning the clock would still label him the same word, late. Eli's mornings began before the sun decided to show up. At 5:10, his alarm buzzed once. Never twice. He'd trained himself to wake on the first sound the way some people trained for combat. He dressed quietly, packed a lunch, and started the kettle. Upstairs, Pippa slept curled around a stuffed rabbit that had lost one eye. Eli woke her with a soft knock and a sentence he repeated like a ritual. Hey, Pip, time. She didn't jump up like kids in movies. She sat slowly, rubbed her face, and blinked herself into the day. Eli helped her with the parts she still struggled with, buttons, hair ties, remembering where she'd left her shoes. By 6:05, they were in the car. He drove across town to a small clinic attached to an old community center. The sign out front read, Morning Speech and Learning Lab. The appointments were limited, and the only slot available for months had been the 6:45 a.m. slot, the one that didn't care about workside start times. Pippa went inside with her folder. Eli stayed in the car with a book he never finished, watching the door like a guard. When she came back out, her cheeks were pink from effort, and she held herself a little taller. Eli always said the same thing, "Proud of you."
Then he drove her to school, kissed the top of her head, and merged into traffic toward Hartwell. He could have explained all of it. He chose not to. Because in his experience, once you told a workplace what your child needed, they didn't give you grace, they gave you a label, a problem, a risk. So he did what he could control. He worked through breaks, stayed late, and let the time clock say whatever it wanted. The new zero excuses policy would hit the warehouse next week, written by someone who had never sat in a car outside a clinic at dawn.
The email arrived on a Monday at 7:12 a.m., right as the warehouse was waking up. Dock doors rolling open, scanners chirping, steel-toe boots hitting concrete like a drumline. Subject: Attendance Enforcement Update. No one had to ask who it came from. Marcus Vellum's name sat at the bottom in crisp corporate font, like a signature carved into stone. Renee printed it and taped it beside the time clock. People gathered around it with coffee cups in hand, reading the bullet points twice, as if repetition might soften them. 3 late arrivals, written warning. 5 late arrivals, final warning. 7 late arrivals, termination. No exceptions, no manager discretion, no accommodation discussions without COO approval. A silence spread through the lane, heavy and practical. People weren't shocked that rules existed, they were shocked at the part that sounded proud of being cruel. One of the older pickers muttered, "So if your kid's sick, you're just done?" Another said, "If your car won't start, you better run here." Renee's jaw tightened. She hated the policy, but she hated the trap it created even more. It would punish the people who couldn't afford backup plans, the ones with one car, one babysitter, one fragile thread holding the whole week together. Eli read it once and folded his arms loosely, like he was bracing without showing it. Renee stepped closer. "Did you see this?" "Yes," Eli said. "Do you want to talk to HR? Put something on record?" Eli looked at the paper again, then at the time clock, its red numbers unwavering, indifferent. "No," he said. "It won't change the math." Renee watched him walk away and felt a tightness in her chest. The policy wasn't designed to improve attendance, it was designed to make terminations easy. Renee would try to warn Sienna anyway, but every attempt to reach the CEO would vanish before it ever reached her desk. Renee Calder had worked under 3 operations chiefs in 10 years, and she knew the difference between procedure and a choke chain. By Tuesday, she'd drafted a short meeting request to the executive floor. Nothing emotional, nothing dramatic, just facts. 1 employee with repeated lateness, exceptional performance, and a predictable pattern that suggested a fixable constraint. She sent it directly to the CEO's scheduling inbox. An hour later, she got a polite reply from an assistant she'd never met. "Please route all attendance-related matters through the COO's office." She tried again, different wording, different subject line. She attached productivity notes from Bay C, numbers that spoke louder than opinions. This time, the reply came faster. "Noted, Mr. Vellum's team will follow up." No follow-up came. She called HR next. HR said they couldn't discuss an active discipline trend without COO sign-off. She asked who changed that rule. HR didn't answer, just went quiet in that way people go quiet when they like their paycheck. On Thursday, Renee drove to the admin building during lunch and left a sealed envelope with the receptionist. "For Miss Hart only," she said, and wrote "Confidential" across the front. The receptionist set it in the in tray beside a stack of board packets. When Renee returned the next day, the in tray was empty. The receptionist shrugged. "Mr. Vellum picks up executive mail sometimes, keeps things moving." That night, Renee sat in her car in the parking lot and watched Eli's old sedan pull out. He didn't speed, he didn't look angry, he looked like someone rationing energy. Renee whispered, "They're setting you up," though he couldn't hear her. The following week, Sienna would walk the warehouse floor and notice Eli for the first time, right when Marcus didn't want her noticing anything at all.
Sienna Hart's first floor walk was scheduled like a photo opportunity. Safety vest, clipped badge, a few quick handshakes for visibility. Marcus Vellum stayed close, narrating as they moved, as if the warehouse were a story he owned. "This is Dock 2. That's our returns lane. Bay C is our highest volume." Sienna nodded at the right places, but her eyes kept drifting, past Marcus, past the polished tour route, to the spots where work actually happened. In Bay C, she saw a man in a navy uniform kneeling beside a pallet stack, shifting boxes by inches. Not wasted effort, precision. He moved one skid to open a clean corridor, adjusted the angle of a rolling cart, then stepped back and studied the line like he could see the next hour before it arrived. The pickers around him sped up without being told. Less weaving, less backtracking. The lane simply flowed. Sienna slowed. Marcus's voice sharpened. "We should keep moving. The carrier contracts are upstairs." Sienna kept her gaze on the man. "Who's that?" Marcus didn't look. "Maintenance support. Newer hire. Attendance issue." The man stood, wiped his hands on his pants, and checked a handheld scanner. He didn't perform, didn't look up to see who was watching. He just went back to work. Something in that bothered Sienna, because people usually looked up when the CEO walked by. This man acted as if the title didn't change the job. She took a step closer. "What's your name?" He looked up then, calm eyes, no surprise. "Eli Mercer." Marcus's hand touched Sienna's elbow, not quite a grip, but an opinion. "Not worth your time," Marcus murmured. Sienna didn't pull away, but her jaw tightened. "Noted," she said, and kept walking, though her attention stayed behind. That night, Sienna would review the attendance issue Marcus mentioned, only to find it was neat in all the wrong ways, like someone had cleaned it too well. Sienna didn't usually take personnel files home in her head. She'd trained herself not to. Leadership required boundaries, her father used to say. If you carried every story, you'd drown. Still, that evening, she opened her laptop and pulled up the attendance report Marcus had referenced. Eli Mercer, a neat column of red marks. Dates, timestamps, supervisor initials. Nothing messy, nothing human. She clicked into the supporting notes section, expecting at least a line. Traffic accident on I-40, or childcare disruption, or requested schedule review. The notes were blank. She checked the disciplinary ladder. Warnings were issued on time, signatures collected, policy cited. Everything followed the rules so perfectly it felt rehearsed. Sienna frowned and opened the productivity dashboards, because if she'd learned anything in 6 months as CEO, it was that numbers told truths people tried to hide. Bay C's throughput had jumped over the past month. Pick times down, error rates down, damage claims slightly down. She filtered by shift. The improvement clustered around one team, one lane, Eli's lane. That didn't absolve lateness, but it did complicate the story Marcus wanted her to accept. Replaceable worker, simple problem, clean solution. Sienna scrolled back through the file again, slower. No accommodation inquiry, no manager request, no HR outreach, not even a recorded conversation attempt. Just marks, just consequences. It wasn't that Eli looked guilty on paper, it's that no one had tried to understand the pattern. And in an organization this large, incuriosity was rarely accidental. Sienna closed the laptop and stared at the dark screen long enough to see her own reflection. Tired eyes, controlled expression, the CEO her board wanted. Then she thought of her mother's voice. "He's kind." Sienna stood, grabbed her coat, and left the office later than she intended. She didn't drive to her apartment. She drove toward her mother's street, because she needed to see what kind of man left a too clean file behind.
Sunday arrived with soft rain and the kind of gray light that made the day feel slower on purpose. Sienna brought a loaf of bread from a bakery near downtown, an offering to buy herself a calmer conversation. Marilyn took one look at her and said, "You're working too much." Sienna followed her into the kitchen. "I'm fine."
Marilyn opened the oven, checked something, then shut it with a practiced hip. If you say fine one more time, I'm adding it to the stew as an ingredient. They sat at the small table by the window. Marilyn ladled soup into bowls like she was feeding someone back to life. For a few minutes, they talked about safe topics: weather, the grocery store's new self-checkout, the neighbor's cat that kept napping on Marilyn's porch furniture. Then Marilyn said, casually but not carelessly, "Eli's little girl was over here yesterday." Sienna's spoon paused midair. "Pippa?" "Yes, she helped me sort beans." Marilyn shook her head, a smile showing briefly. "Serious little thing. Polite. She tries very hard." Sienna swallowed. How is he doing?" Marilyn didn't answer immediately. She stirred her own bowl once, slow. "He's tired in a way you don't fix with sleep." Sienna stared at the table grain. "I didn't know he had a child." "I figured you didn't." Marilyn's voice stayed calm, but the disappointment was real. "That's the trouble with running companies from upstairs. You see schedules, not people." Sienna flinched, just slightly. Marilyn continued. "He takes her somewhere early, before school. A clinic, I think. He sits in the car and waits, every morning. Rain, heat, whatever." Sienna's throat tightened. The file had never said clinic. It had only said late. And, Marilyn added, lowering her voice, "I think he lost his job. Tuesday he was home in the middle of the day, sat on his steps forever. I brought him soup. He thanked me and didn't explain." Sienna set her spoon down carefully. "Mom, that was me." Sienna would leave her mother's house with one thought burning through everything else. If Eli's lateness had a reason, then Marcus Vellum had made sure she never heard it. Monday morning, Sienna arrived at Hartwell Distribution before her assistant, before the lights in the corridor fully woke up. The building felt different that early, less polished, more honest. She didn't go to her office. She went straight to HR. The HR director, Paula, looked startled when Sienna stepped into the doorway. "Miss Hart, do you have an appointment?" "No," Sienna said. "I need the complete personnel file for Eli Mercer, not the attendance summary, the full file, and I need it now." Paula's expression tightened in the way people did when they felt policy trying to protect them. Those requests usually go through, "I'm aware," Sienna cut in. Her tone wasn't loud, it didn't need to be. This one doesn't. Paula hesitated, then nodded and disappeared into the records room. When she returned, she carried a thin folder. Thin. Sienna took it, flipped it open, and felt her stomach drop. 3 lines of prior employment, no reference checks attached, no interview notes beyond meets physical requirements, no documentation of any conversation about the pattern of lateness.
"Is this all of it?" Sienna asked. Paula cleared her throat. "That's the official file." "Official," Sienna repeated. She looked up. "Meaning there's an unofficial one." Paula didn't answer, but her eyes flicked toward the ceiling, toward operations. Sienna closed the folder. "Print me every email related to Eli Mercer's attendance policy enforcement. Include routing headers." Paula blinked. "That could take—" "Do it," Sienna said. Then softer but sharper, "I'm done signing decisions built on half-truths." As she turned to leave, Paula spoke quietly. "Ms. Hart, Mr. Vellum has asked us to be careful about exceptions. He said the board is watching." Sienna stopped at the door. "The board can watch me fix this." The next person Sienna called wasn't Marcus. It was Renee Calder, the only manager who had looked troubled instead of satisfied when Eli's name came up. Renee arrived at the executive floor still wearing her warehouse jacket, like she didn't trust the building not to swallow her whole if she dressed too nicely. Sienna met her at the door and gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Close it."
Renee closed the door, then stood instead of sitting. "You finally got my messages." "I didn't. That's the point. Talk to me." Renee exhaled hard through her nose. "Eli is late, yes, but he's also the reason Bay C stopped choking every afternoon. He reorganized returns flow without anyone asking. He mapped a better pick path using nothing but chalk marks on the floor. I tried to bring you numbers. I tried to bring you context. Every time I requested a meeting, it got rerouted." Sienna nodded once. "By operations." Renee reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a folded stack of papers. "And there's more." She laid them on the desk. The first page was a printout of a professional profile, Eli Mercer's name, an old photo, a list of technical projects, warehouse automation design, routing optimization, systems integration for multi-site distribution. Sienna's eyes scanned, her mouth went dry. Why is he working entry level? Renee's voice softened. Because he's raising his kid alone. Because he needed something fast. Because he didn't want to explain his life to strangers. Sienna flipped to the next papers, handwritten notes, sketches of lane layouts, suggested changes with dates. Renee pointed to the corner initials. "Those are Eli's. I kept copies." Sienna's gaze moved to a typed report from operations, same changes, later date, credited to Marcus Vellum's project code. Sienna looked up slowly. "He stole them." Renee didn't smile, and he wanted Eli gone before anyone asked why a maintenance support guy could outthink the entire planning team. Sienna gathered the papers into a neat stack, hands steady now. "Thank you," she said. "Get me Marcus Vellum." Marcus would walk into Sienna's office confident until she slid the stolen notes across the desk and asked one question he couldn't spreadsheet his way out of.
Marcus Vellum arrived in under 5 minutes, as if he'd been waiting for the summons. He stepped into Sienna's office with the same calm polish he wore in board meetings. Jacket buttoned, tie perfect, expression mildly amused. "You wanted to see me?" he asked. Sienna didn't offer a seat. She placed Renee's stack of papers on the desk and slid them toward him. Marcus glanced down, then up. "What is this?" "Eli Mercer," Sienna said. "His prior work, his process notes, and the report where those same changes appear under your project code." Marcus gave a small laugh, almost friendly. "We implement suggestions from the floor all the time." "Then credit the floor," Sienna replied, "and don't terminate the person who made you look competent." Marcus's smile thinned. "He was late." "He was predictable," Sienna corrected, "and instead of letting his manager discuss accommodations, you blocked every attempt to reach me." Marcus's eyes hardened a fraction. "You're new in the chair, Sienna. The board wants discipline. They want consistency. Exceptions invite lawsuits." "Funny," Sienna said, voice level, "because what invites lawsuits is retaliation, misattribution of work, and interference with executive communications." Marcus straightened. "Are you accusing me of something?" "I'm telling you what I'm documenting." Sienna tapped the folder. "Effective immediately, you're removed from personnel oversight and policy enforcement, pending an internal review. HR will report directly to me." Marcus's jaw flexed. "You're making this personal." Sienna met his gaze. "You already did. You just did it quietly." That evening, Sienna would drive to Maplewood Lane again. Not to talk, not yet, just to see with her own eyes what her company had discarded. Sienna parked half a block down from her mother's house and turned off the engine. The rain had stopped, leaving the street glossy under the lamps. It felt wrong, being here without knocking, watching a life through glass, but she couldn't make herself leave. Eli's porch light glowed a soft amber. Curtains were open in the front window, and the living room looked modest but cared for.
hand-me-down couch, a blanket folded with intention, shoes lined up by the door, as if order could keep the world from sliding apart. She saw Eli at the kitchen table, shoulders bent over a workbook. Pippa sat across from him, feet tucked under her on the chair, pointing at a line on the page like it mattered. Eli listened the way some people prayed, fully. Then he said something that made Pippa grin, and he grinned back. It wasn't a big laugh. It was quick and surprised, like it escaped him. Sienna realized she had never seen that expression on his face at Hartwell. At work, he wore quiet like armor. Here, in his own house, he allowed himself to be a father. Pippa hopped down and ran out of frame. A moment later, she reappeared, holding something. Paper, maybe. A drawing. And Eli leaned in as if it were a blueprint for a new world.
Sienna's chest tightened with a feeling that wasn't just guilt. It was recognition. Her father used to look at her math homework like that, like the problem was worth his full attention. She gripped the steering wheel until her hands hurt, then forced herself to breathe. She wasn't going to fix this with a speech. She'd have to fix it with action. By morning, Sienna would be standing on Eli Mercer's porch, sleep-deprived, uninvited, and finally ready to ask the question she should have asked before she ever signed his termination. At 6:30 a.m., the sky was still pale and undecided. Sienna knocked once, then again, and waited. The door opened to Eli in a plain t-shirt and jeans, coffee mug in hand. His face shifted through a brief sequence, surprise, understanding, then the same steady calm she remembered from the termination meeting. "Miss Hart," he said. "I'm Marilyn's daughter," Sienna replied automatically, as if that explained why she was here. "I know," Eli said, and stepped back. "Come in." The house smelled like toast. The kitchen was small but warm, with a child's backpack propped by the door, and a calendar on the fridge marked with neat handwriting, appointments, school notes, something circled in red that looked important. Eli poured coffee without asking, set a mug in front of her, and sat across the table. He didn't fill the silence. He let it exist. Sienna cleared her throat. "Why didn't you tell me about your mornings, about your daughter, about what you used to do?" Eli's gaze didn't sharpen. It softened. "Because none of that should be the reason I keep a job." "That's not," Sienna started. "It is," Eli said, not unkindly. "If the rule is the rule, then it shouldn't bend only for the people with the best stories." Sienna's hands curled around the mug. "I fired you." "I know." Upstairs, footsteps. A door opened. Pippa's voice floated down, sing-song and sleepy. "Dad, I can't find my—" She appeared at the top of the stairs, hair messy, eyes blinking at Sienna like she was a new object in the room. Eli said, "Gently, Pippa, this is Miss Hart." Pippa came down 2 steps, then smiled, easy, untrained. "Hi." Sienna's throat tightened. She managed, "Hi, Pippa." Sienna would leave the house without promising anything, because promises were cheap. But she would walk out knowing one thing for certain. Marcus Vellum hadn't just fired an employee, he'd tried to erase a father. Marcus didn't wait for Sienna's internal review to find traction. By lunch, he was already doing what he did best, shaping the story before anyone else could. He called 2 board members directly, men who respected his calm numbers and distrusted Sienna's newness. He spoke in a tone that sounded responsible, even concerned. "I'm worried about precedent. We made a clean attendance decision. Now Sienna wants to reverse it because she's formed a personal connection through her mother." He let the phrase land, personal connection. Then he added another, compromised judgment. By mid-afternoon, Sienna's assistant walked into her office with a tight expression and a printed calendar invite. "Emergency board meeting," she said. "Thursday, 8 a.m. Topic line says, Executive Decision Integrity." Sienna stared at the paper. She didn't feel fear exactly. She felt anger,
cold and clarifying. Trudy, or rather Renee, had been right. Marcus wasn't enforcing policy, he was building leverage. Renee stepped into the doorway a moment later, as if she'd sensed the shift in the air. "He's calling it favoritism," Renee said. Sienna nodded once. "Of course he is." "What are you going to do?" Renee asked. Sienna opened her laptop and pulled up the performance dashboards again. "I'm going to do the one thing Marcus didn't expect," she said. She stood. "I'm going to walk in with facts that don't require anyone to trust my motives." Renee's face tightened with something like relief. "You'll need the paper trail." "I know. And I want every header, every timestamp, every rerouted message." She looked down at the board invite one more time. "If Marcus wants to make this about integrity," she said quietly, "then we'll talk about integrity." The next 48 hours would decide more than Eli's job. They would decide whether Sienna remained CEO and whether Hartwell Distribution remained a company that punished quiet people for having lives.
Thursday morning, the boardroom felt colder than it needed to. 8 seats filled. Water glasses lined up like props. Marcus sat near the head of the table, hands folded, a thin stack of notes arranged square to the edge. Confidence made physical. Sienna walked in carrying 2 folders and a laptop. She didn't smile. She didn't look at Marcus first. She looked at the chair where her father used to sit, and she sat down as if she belonged there, because she did. The chairman cleared his throat. "We're here because Mr. Vellum has concerns about reversing an attendance-based termination." Marcus spoke for 10 minutes. He used words like consistency, risk, precedent. He said Sienna was acting from emotion and neighborhood influence. He didn't raise his voice once. He didn't need to. He relied on the room's assumption that calm equals truth. When he finished, Sienna opened the first folder. 3 points, Sienna said. First, Eli Mercer's work directly improved Bay C throughput by 18% in 5 weeks. Here are the dashboards by shift and lane. She turned the laptop toward them. Second, the routing and lane flow changes credited to operations were originally submitted in handwritten notes by Mercer to his supervisor. Originals are here, dates are here. She slid the pages across the table. Board members leaned in despite themselves. Third, Sienna said, voice steady, my executive office never received 3 separate meeting requests from Renee Calder to discuss Mercer's attendance pattern. Email headers show those requests were rerouted to Mr. Vellum's office and closed without action. Silence thickened. Sienna looked at Marcus. That's not policy enforcement, that's information control. The vote would come fast, but the consequence would come faster. Marcus's story was about to collapse, and everyone in the room knew it. The chairman asked for a brief recess, but no one moved. The board members stared at the papers in front of them, as if they were seeing their own company for the first time. One director spoke quietly. These email headers, are they verified? Sienna nodded. HR printed them directly from the server logs. No forwarding, no screenshots, originals. Marcus's posture stayed composed, but his mouth tightened at the corners. This is being overcomplicated, he said. The employee was late. And you ensured no one could propose a solution. You created a problem that only termination could solve. The chairman's eyes narrowed. Mr. Vellum, did you intercept communications to the CEO? Marcus spread his hands. We have protocols. My office filters operational noise so the CEO can focus on strategic decisions. That's not filtering, that's blocking. A vote was called. Hands rose, one after another, authorizing a formal review of Marcus's conduct, immediately removing him from operational oversight and restoring direct reporting lines to the CEO until the investigation concluded. Marcus didn't argue. He simply gathered his notes slower than necessary, as if time itself should respect him. When he stood, Sienna remained seated. She watched him the way you watch a door you finally understand has been locking you in. Marcus paused at the threshold, eyes on the room, not on her. "You're making a mistake," he said softly. Sienna answered without heat. "No, I'm correcting one." Marcus left. The door clicked shut. The sound was small, yet it felt like a weight coming off the building. With Marcus removed, Sienna could finally do the part that mattered most. Face Eli again, not with guilt, but with a concrete offer that wouldn't ask him to sacrifice his daughter for a paycheck. Saturday morning, Sienna returned to Maplewood Lane with an envelope in her coat pocket and a heaviness she refused to disguise. Eli opened the door in flannel and socks, as if weekends were the only days he allowed himself softness. Behind him, she heard laughter, Marilyn's and Pippa's from the backyard. "I won't stay long," Sienna said. Eli stepped aside. "Kitchen's this way." She set the envelope on the table between them. "This is an offer letter." Eli didn't touch it. Sienna continued, voice clear. "Operations Systems Lead, reporting to me. Salary and benefits are on page 2. Flexible start time. Core hours are 10 to 3. The rest can be done remote or off hours, whatever matches your mornings." Eli's eyes stayed on her, guarded. "Why?" "Because you were doing the job already," Sienna said. "You were improving our flow, reducing errors, and making people's days easier, while we punished you for a schedule we refused to understand." Eli's jaw tightened. "I don't need charity." "This isn't charity," Sienna said, leaning forward slightly. "It's accountability, on my side. I signed a termination I shouldn't have signed. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm offering you work you're qualified to do, with terms that don't require you to lie about your life." Eli finally picked up the envelope. He didn't open it yet. "I'll read it," Eli said. "That's all I'm asking," Sienna replied. Eli would take the envelope to the porch and sit with it unopened, because the hardest part wasn't accepting a job. It was deciding whether to trust a company that had already proven it could discard him. 2 weeks later, Eli Mercer walked into Hartwell Distribution at 9:20 a.m., 10 minutes early for his new start time, and paused in the lobby, like he was measuring whether the building still belonged to the people inside it. Renee waited near reception, trying and failing to look casual. When she saw him, her shoulders dropped in visible relief. "You came back," she said. "I said I'd read it," Eli replied, and for the first time, his voice carried something close to humor. In his first month, he didn't chase grand reforms. He fixed friction, one small bottleneck at a time. He changed pick sequencing so new hires stopped zigzagging. He rewrote the returns logic so damaged goods didn't clog the wrong lane. He trained supervisors to document patterns with context, not just punishment. HR rolled out a new policy framework. Attendance expectations stayed firm, but employees could request schedule adjustments through a documented process that didn't require COO permission. The rule became consistency with a path to solutions. Productivity rose again, measurable, undeniable. On Maplewood Lane, Sunday dinners became a quiet habit. Marilyn cooked too much on purpose. Pippa started calling Sienna Miss Sienna at first, then dropped the miss without anyone asking. One Tuesday evening, Sienna passed Eli's office and saw his light on. She stopped, set 2 coffees down on his desk, and didn't make a speech. Eli looked up. "Long day?" Sienna nodded. "Long day." They drank coffee in companionable silence, the kind that didn't demand anything. Outside, the warehouse ran smoother, not because someone got stricter, but because someone finally listened.
And just when Sienna thought the worst was behind them, a new email arrived, one that proved Marcus had left one last trap in the system before he went.